All right, Geek Protagonist here with a review. I saw this earlier today, and we have Shang-Chi. Some people say Shang-Chi, some people say Shang-Chi. I say Shang-Chi, that's how I've always said it. Read the comics, deal with it. Um, but Sean, aka Shang-Chi, is played by Simu Liu. Aquafina plays Katie. Tony Shuai, who phenomenal actor, plays Ji Wenwu, aka the Mandarin. Um, Migder Zhang plays Xiaoling. Uh, Fala Chen plays Li, and Michelle Yeoh plays Ying Na. Master Guanbo plays by Wanyon. Florian Mutea plays Razor Fist. Andy Lee plays Death Dealer. Um, there's a few other people here. Stephanie Husu plays So. Quan Decker plays John. And there's Wipo by Sai Shin. So, looked them up on IMDb. So, the movie starts off very interesting because it's like they kind of talk about it opens up with the Legend of the Ten Rings, like the story behind that, in Chinese. Kind of like it felt like watching one of the Chinese films, like about the Monkey King, or a few of the other ones, like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, those kind of levels. But then as it goes into the story, it's very interesting how they kind of lay it out, and it kind of took. I guess I'm just gonna call him Wenwu. They kind of took Wenwu because in the comics he originally started off as Fu Manchu, but then after they lost, Marvel had the rights to it. The rights lapsed. It was a very stereotypical character, and a lot of not so good stereotypes of Chinese culture came from that. Um, so they retconned his story a bit, using it that name is just one of his monikers. They even reference that in the movie, like he's been called a few things. So the story itself is cool because you kind of see things lead up to stuff, and then you see that they're like people in their mid-20s. They're kind of living life, trying to figure things out. They're valets, doing the whole nine. And as they start to go through, you have this thing where like Katie is his best friend. You hear this funny story. It was a funny story about how they met, who they are, and kind of just their world. And as you start to go through their life, you start to see that they have the same kind of problems as any typical person of that age is, and then they start to go, and as they keep going, basically his old life, boom, hits in, which is what you see in the trailer. And the action is very interesting. It's different for a Marvel film, but it's not something you've never seen before if you watched enough of the Chinese movies like The Raid or anything like that. Like they do a lot of close-up shots and slow-down shots. They're very precise, which I got to give them credit for. They didn't use a lot of shaky camera. Now, me personally, shaky camera doesn't bother me as long as it's not going like this the whole time. It's supposed to get you in the action. It's like a guerrilla style thing. I actually personally think it works for some films. Sometimes I think films are enhanced by it, but that's just my personal opinion. And the way this story unfolds is it kind of basically drops you into this backstory and anything like that. Now, one of the things I will definitely say is I thought it was interesting were some of the changes they took. Like when you started to learn about who Wenwu is, and he has the 10 rings, and I cannot remember the name of that weapon. It's the weapons that sometimes people would use, and sometimes in certain forms of kung fu and things. I do apologize. It's the bracelets. I cannot remember them right now. That was not the martial art I studied. So, but I did know about it. It's escaping me right now. But that I liked how they did that because like he could block with it, and then he used it in different ways. How he could like fire him off, he could power him up. It was like a very useful, interesting thing. If they weren't going to do the rings way, where it's just like the ice ring, the fire ring, the hypnotizing ring, things like that. These were more about like destruction, and they kind of revitalize you. And you like he could jump in the air and go like this, and then like rings, like he could shoot off two rings if he wanted to, or he could grab them and pop, 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 pop like that, and he could like destroy things. And when he meets Lee, and they kind of go through this whole story, who the Mandarin is, why he wants certain things and stuff. You get to see a lot of who Wenwu is. It was a very layered villain, and I gotta give Marvel credit because the guy, it was like, what do you give the man who has everything kind of question. And for what they were trying to accomplish, you actually felt sympathetic for him. He wasn't like the best person, but what they did and how he tried to be, they showed he was like a complete person, and he was trying to do something, and it was really interesting. Like I really liked his character because I felt for him. I still felt he was bad, but I understood where he was coming from, and I don't think he was all bad. He didn't mean for things to be after a while. Like once he found that peace and what these things, he kind of took a different path and different thought pattern. And from when you first see him in the movie and like him in the past to these other things, you do still see there is a difference compared to the cold bloodedness to here, but yet because he still has that there and how vicious he was and what he did, and he's still a bad guy in the end. The way they did it, but even his motivations and the when they started to do things, it was from a place of purity, but it wasn't. It's a place of purity from a bad person. You get what I'm saying? Like if a person sits there and they hurt people because they're angry with stuff that happened with them, but they're trying to stop crime and they're hurting people, just tearing them up. It's but because they think crime is bad. Yeah, it's a place of purity, but your motivations are still bad. If that makes sense. That's the best analogy I can think of right now. Um, yeah. So it's kind of like that. Like I'm gonna stop crime, but I'm not gonna stop crime because they're wrong. That's just part of it. I'm gonna stop crime because I feel a certain type of way, and it's an easier place to take things out on, kind of thing almost. But they're still good. So very layered character, very good. In doing this movie, putting Michelle Yeoh in this movie, it just ups it because she's a legend. So to me, that upped the movie a lot just by her being in it in this style of movie. Apparently, a lot of people have an issue with like Aquafina. I get. So there's this thing where people keep saying black scent, and I don't like that. I don't think that should be a thing because I know people who, live in the hood and who live in certain places, Philly, New York, and they're not all black, but yet they have a similar style of speaking. So I know there's one dude, he's Caucasian, he's from New York, but he be talk like this, like he be like, "Yo, man, what's up? How you feeling today?" Does that mean now he's doing black accent? No, that's the area he's from. And if I remember correctly, she's a New Yorker, and I guess because she said something about she won't do like Asian accents, but then people are like, "But you'll do black accent," because I guess it was like Ocean's 8. She like did something where she sounded like a rapper or something. So I see a lot of people have an issue with her for that. That didn't really get to me because when I hear her speak, I'm like the area she's from, and I think Selena Gomez got hit with that, and I'm like, she's Latina. Like, I think people try to put too much into things, and the black accent thing to me is not a thing. And if you are going to do it, and you're doing an imitation, then you also need to call out Dave Chappelle, Key and Peele, Eddie Murphy. for doing Caucasian accents. We're like, hey, gee golly rulers, like that's what I mean. Like I'm like, if you're gonna swing the pendulum one way, then you need to also swing it the other way. Outside of that, for a Marvel film, a lot of times they rely on comedy. Hey, it's they have a formula. Kevin Feige goes, "We don't have a formula." Yes, you do, because you even said it. Your whole point is to make people laugh, because then they can overlook your flaws because they're too busy laughing. Doctor Strange had a couple that really fell flat, like Beyonce waiting for the boom boom. This one didn't have that. Aquafina's actual comedy was subtle, and maybe it's because she's a comedian. It was like subtle, and it hit where it needed to hit. And it wasn't always like she was trying to go for the joke. It was her reactions and just what she said was very funny. And I think that was actually really well done and handled very well in this film. Like Aquafina's character, I actually thought was a good character. She was a very good support. Now you have Ji Ling, Shang-Chi's sister, which I was still a little thrown by that because I don't remember her being as significant. But in this, she was kind of along for the ride, but there was a story behind why she was there. But she was always kind of in the background a little, but she was right there, and she was strong when she needed to be, and what she was able to do, and how she learned how to fight. That was interesting. Um, I thought it was really cool seeing Abomination. That felt like there was a plot thread that I wanted to keep going with. So hopefully, when She-Hulk, since they're saying Abomination is going to be there, that they're going to explore that more, because it seems like Abomination, there was more story there, and I liked how they handled it. Also, too, he looked like definitely like the comic. I love the Incredible Hulk movie with that version of Abomination. He kind of reminded me a little bit of Ultimates a bit. Like they didn't have like the fish gill thing. He kind of looked like this monster, but it looked like this one transformed much closer to what he looks like in the comics with the little things here. And his face had that human look, but he definitely looked more. He even had the same shorts, which I thought was interesting. However, if some people are asking, well, how can they retcon that? Well, you've seen throughout the time with Gamma monsters in the MCU, their looks have changed. I mean, look at Bruce Banner from Infinity War and Endgame and compare him to Avengers. In Avengers, he walked more like a gorilla. By the time you start to get through it, he's kind of changing because Gamma people change, artists and stuff like that. But I kind of like the idea that they're keeping up with that concept. Trying to think of other things. Like I said, the fighting was very crisp, and the story was very strong, and it had another factor to it. Now they did change up some of the things. They kept like the core, like how Shang-Chi's first story started, but they changed the reasons behind it. For the motivations of the comic book with his father's like, this dude's evil, blah 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 blah, to this one where it's like, well, yeah, this person actually is. Why did he do this, and where he sent them to, and so they kept the story, but they tweaked it for the MCU. Uh, Trying to think of other things I like, because I also want to go over some things I didn't like. Bop, 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 bop. I thought the characterizations were good. Razor Fist was handled well. Razor Fist was good enough. I was like, this is good enough. He was Razor Fist in the end, and I was okay with that. The story does take a turn, as people said. It kind of shifts to the left, which is kind of the direction that Marvel is going in right now. There's, if you really think about it, there's kind of two directions they're going. And I'll give you a hint because I don't want to spoil anything. Because this is a power review. I'm trying not to spoil nothing. Maybe at the end I might. I'll warn you when it does. Think about WandaVision and what it entailed. The reveals in WandaVision of who she is and why she's got that name. And then think about Loki and the core of what Loki's story was about. The big arc of why and what was happening, and the things that happened at the end. Both of those seem to kind of in the end of this film. Wasn't mad at it, actually. I thought something was revealed that I was very interested in, because there are certain things that I prefer, and you would think I would read this certain comic more often because I like these villains, but I do from time to time. So it's not that I don't, but you would think I was even more into it than I am. So I'm gonna leave that there. Uh, Mostly it for that part. Now there were some things I didn't like. I There was, at least my personal opinion, there were some things that kind of pushed it, kind of walked that line of that SJW line. I get where they were coming from, and they didn't fully cross it, but it was enough that it kind of threw me. Like there was an exchange between when her sister and Katie first meet, Shing Li, like first meet, and it's like, okay, and how when she catches up with her brother, what they did, I was like, did you really have to do that? Like I get why you did it, but did you have to? Did you have to have her be like that? And that kind of annoyed me. Um, the exchange was fine between the two, but it was kind of like I smell a little something here. You kind of bringing down the guy a little bit to bring this up, but like I said, it was only a little, so it wasn't like, oh my gosh. It was just like, oh, okay. If you're going to do it, at least you did it in small doses, so it was enough. And there is something that happens later where they like really focus on the women for a second, and then it goes there, and I'm like, oh, I guess so. All right. It was like one of those things. I was like, all right, at least you kind of evened it out towards the end part and padded it out, but still, I felt it a little. And before anyone does it, I'm not against girl power or anything like that. It's just there's a way to do it, and when you have to bring someone down to bring the other up, I'm not the biggest fan of that. But it was very lightly done, so it's okay. Uh, what else? I thought the action sequences were crisp. They were fine. Um, I did feel like Shang Chi, like while they were trying to teach him stuff, he kind of was like they were kind of playing off of the hidden life and everything. I did like that they didn't focus on "you lied to me" like the whole movie. That I actually felt very good about that, because that's a trope that gets pulled on way too much. Um, the story had some good beats. It had a good thing. Like I said, there was a family dynamic there that was very interesting and very strong, and I liked how they handled that. The movie, ran the paces. It was very good, but it felt like a Chinese movie. In the sense of, if you watched enough Chinese films, it had a lot of that flavor. But I know a lot of people are cool with this because it's you've never seen it in a Marvel film. But if you watch enough of those movies, you've seen this before. So that kind of happened where I was like, "This is cool," but I've also seen this before. But it's cool. And with the hit, the story kind of does take a trajectory, and I actually thought that was not bad. Um, they do hark back on Mandarin because, like, my friend who loves Iron Man is still very angry about the fact that he never got the Mandarin and Iron Man and the Mandarin, because he watched the old Iron Man cartoon, which was based around Force Works. So in his mind, like that to him is like Iron Man's Joker. So to not see that villain and Iron Man clash really rubbed him the wrong way. Which in turn, I thought how they explained the story of how Weston became the Mandarin with the rings, and you want a happy life or meaningful death. Like that explanation, that was fine. When they talked about the Mandarin and kind of went through it, I didn't like that. I also wish the sister. I liked where she was, but I wish we would have gotten a little more out of her. But she was in a good place with me though, so it wasn't like I was like, oh my goodness. But I was like, I wish she kind of talked like she kind of engaged a little more. It seemed like she was always all of a sudden over here. Like she would do stuff and then she would go over here. Um, there was some inconsistencies. So for example, I'm giving you a heads up now. This is about to go into spoiler territory. Now I got to talk about some spoilers. So, before I go into the spoilers, um, I keep seeing people go, "This is the best Marvel movie yet. This is the just triumph. This is amazing. This is no, it wasn't. It was, you know what I say it was on my rating system. It was a good time. I don't understand. Like people were like, "This is the best Marvel movie I've ever seen," and also too, I need to clear something up. Yes, they studios have been trying to get Shang-Chi into theater since I think like '88. I know something happened after Blade. They were trying to, but they were also trying to get Black Panther. I know the MCU when they were Marvel films, original slate had like Power Pack, Shang Chi, Captain America, a few others. Actually, I took a picture off of a thing from somewhere I saw on the internet, but now I'm starting to think it was someone's video. I'll find out. If I do, I'll try to give you props, and I apologize if I don't. I remember I just pulled it and I was like, oh, there it is, and I kind of took a snapshot of it. So there, Shang Chi has been in the works for a while. However, there are people who are saying that Shang Chi was made one of two reasons: one, because of the success of Black Panther, and two, for the Chinese market. Even though Kevin Feige's like, I've been wanting to do Shang-Chi for a long time. He was always on the docket. You could have did him earlier. Yeah. The beginning of the movie opens with like the now here we're going into, like I said before, does not spoil. The movie opens with Chinese for like the first like 5-10 minutes, just Chinese talking, subtitles. That's for the Chinese market. There are things in certain parts of the storytelling, like I said, if you watch enough Chinese films like Monkey King and stuff like that, Chinese market. When they talk about how the relations are coming over for how it is when you first get over here and how Americans treat you and stuff, Chinese market. They made this movie. They wanted to make the movie. That's fine. I mean, heck, I hear they still want to make Power Pack. Heck, Kevin Feige wants to make X-Men. Where's X-Men? Oh, not even announced yet. So they have movies they want to make. They just haven't made them yet. This movie was made because of Black Panther. Once they saw the success of Black Panther, they were like, we could push this. That's not a bad thing. It's not terrible. I'm sick of people trying to say, no, it wasn't. No, it was this. They always wanted to do it. Yes, I know. But they always wanted to do Black Panther too. Since Blade happened, people came up with ideas of, hey, let's take these more obscure characters like a Black Panther, like a Shang-Chi, who were big at one time. Shang-Chi was really huge in like the 70s and 80s because of the big Kung Fu boom with Enter the Dragon and all that stuff, and when we had the thing. So Shang-Chi was big for a bit. Really sold well too. And then kind of meandered off. I always liked Shang-Chi. I loved him in Avengers. We had the electrical nunchucks, and the Tony made him like the special gauntlets and things like that. And he has some other abilities. I think he had like a shadow step later, where he could like hit and then make like a shadow of himself. He had control over his chi, so if you hit him, he can like spread the pain throughout his entire body. So if it's like a straight punch, it's like, well, instead of like, oh, that really hurt, it's like, oh nope, spread it everywhere. It doesn't really hurt now. It's little tiny, it's like a little pinch, all throughout the body, which is nothing. Um, at the same time, yeah. This feels like Black Panther gave them the confidence to make this film, and they were like, this feels like Black Panther really related to African Americans and Africans and stuff like that. This should relate to Chinese Americans in China. And there's not really much wrong with that. I'm not a big fan of catering to China for multiple reasons. Their political beliefs, what I've seen them do recently with the kids and video games, just because they just think they should control that. Also, to some of the things they've done to people. Not saying like I said, that's just how I am, and I don't like the fact that our market. I get that they're a big market, and I'm not saying you should not cater to that market, just like we could cater to the third markets, which is like Europe and stuff. What I'm saying is, I'm noticing Hollywood for the last few years like tries to just cater to that market. Like, what was that movie? And the movie kind of wasn't that great. When they did Cloverfield, not 10 Cloverfield Lane, Cloverfield Paradox. Everyone on the ship was speaking English, and Jai Lee, I think if I remember correctly. I think that's her name. She was speaking Chinese the whole time, but everyone was speaking English. It was like a Chewbacca thing. And I was like, why are you doing that? Why isn't she speaking English, but everyone else here is speaking English? And there are people from France and Russia because of the Chinese market, which is, it made it weird. One of the many things that did it. Um, so it's like one of those things where I'm like, no, you can cater without giving it all away, but that's what they seem to do. This feels like it was a little bit caterish. But, like I said, movie in my rating, good time. Now we're going to get to spoiler territory. You've been warned. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. The character of Katie didn't make sense to me. She said she didn't understand Chinese, yet her grandmom and people around her were speaking Chinese. And when someone spoke to her in Chinese, so that already threw me off because I know people in multicultural families that their family speaks Spanish, they speak Spanish. They speak Korean, and yeah, I do. And they speak Korean. Like, that's weird. My friend currently, he speaks Tamil. Like, they may get rusty, but they still can speak it. So I found that very weird. Then all of a sudden, later in the film, she can understand it. Or like, I was like, is she a genius? Because like she did something with an arrow where she's like, I'm just learning how to shoot arrows. They trained her for like one day and she's like, got it. And does this crazy shot. And it's like, and she even goes, oh, I only learned it one day. I can't believe I made that shot. And I'm like, that is weird. So she said that every time she does something, and she starts to get good at it, she quits and starts something new. And I'm like, okay, so is she a savant where everything comes easy to her, so she gets bored and because of it she can't find a direction? But they never said it, so that's my brain trying to connect dots. Another thing I thought was interesting. So, like I said, this is the spoiler territory. This is the power up part. Now we're powered up. They did the Dweller in the Darkness. I thought that was awesome. I love Doctor Strange villains. Nightmare, my favorite is Shuma Gorath. Dweller in the Dark. I think they're really cool. They have this Cthulhu feel. Lilith. I like the new game, how they made Lilith look, because the other one looks like she's from the 90s with the weird horns. But this whole kind of this headdress thing, I really like that. I think that's a great direction to go, and they should try to retcon. So in turn, because of the 10 rings, and because of the situation, it like, he's releasing them, and then now they all had to stop fighting each other to fight them with the magical lands that pretty much Shangri-La. And I thought that was interesting. They use dragon scale stuff. I thought that was really cool. The weapons and things. Like I said, and then all of a sudden it seemed like Katie and Shang-Chi like got together. Like they're sending off because his dad in the end, who loved his son, realized he was going, gives his son the rings because he saved his son because he loves his son. And I thought that was cool. In the end, it was still a family and love. Like Mandarin didn't feel all bad. But then it was like Katie's laying on his shoulder and he's like holding her hand and they're holding each other's hands at the end and stuff. And I'm like, did I miss something? Did they get together? Why do they act like they're together now? It was really weird. It threw me off because I was like, that's stuff of people getting together. What's happening here? The sister running the place. I thought that was interesting. They're now. I have a feeling that the next movie may be called Shang-Chi and the Mystery of the 10 Rings because there's like a mystery there and they're trying to figure it out. And you see the end credits and you'll see who's in there. I don't want to spoil everything, but it was funny that they kind of had these people. I was like, oh, okay. They use these people and these people are going to show up in the future. So it's kind of like a welcome to the Marvel thing. And I think Wong has been in more films than Doctor Strange, which is weird. Very weird to me. But they did have fun. Michelle Yeoh was amazing. I love the whole the magical plane place. Everything of that was like perfect to me. But this whole the movie was like the best. I was like, it was good. It wasn't like great. It wasn't like, oh my god, it's amazing. I was like, it was a fun time. People seem to enjoy it. But I'm waiting for that Marvel movie to make me go, this is why I love Marvel. And none of the shows, Loki was kind of close. I haven't watched What If yet, but none of the shows, none of the movies have given me the, yeah, Marvel feel. Spider-Man might, but that might be more of a nostalgia. So, overall, if you want to watch the movie, you're not. I don't think you're gonna have a bad time with the movie. The movie was decent. Like I said, I give it a good time. It wasn't like mind blowing. Like they're acting like it's the great, it's a triumph. And no, it wasn't. It's a kung fu movie that you have seen multiple times. And if you watch modern kung fu films, Marvelized. And it's good for Marvel because it's very different for Marvel, but there was nothing that was so different. It was like, oh my goodness, this is different. Except for the Dweller of the Dark, that was really cool. But then it still felt the same because then when they did the dragon, which is the Great Guardian, which I'm hoping the Great Guardian dragon is the one that does Iron Fist, because that's the thing. They could use this to kind of bounce off a lot of characters, like Iron Fist in them when the Deadly Fist of Kung Fu. But when they did the dragon fight, I'm like, I've seen that before. I've seen that in Korean films. I've seen that in Chinese films. Now, like I said, that doesn't mean it's bad, but people are like, oh, it's so great. That's just me. But tell me what you think. Have you watched the film? Did you enjoy it? I thought it was a good Marvel movie. I thought it was definitely better than Black Widow. But it wasn't like it wasn't like oh my god Winter Soldier level great thing or like Iron Man 1 or something, but I thought it was good. Like it was good enough. I was like, okay, this is actually good stuff. Like I would watch a sequel and watch more. I want to see more. I really want to see these things. Like so, it's not like it's in a bad place with me. But some people are like blowing it up like it's the best Marvel film to date. Like I've seen people review it and I'm like, is it? Where are you getting that from? It's good, but you sound a little thirsty. I don't know. Geek Protagonist, you stay safe, you stay healthy, you stay real. And I'll see you.